So Richardson from Orbis Legal, also Reset Recruit, which is my specific brand for the recruitment and staffing industry. As I did say before, the second video, about 60% of my clients now are recruitment and staffing. It's something I'm really focused on. It's something that, from my background, no one else is doing it, as far as I can tell. I see a real need within the industry to have specific expert legal advice, because it is quite a unique industry. Having spent 4 years at Adecco, today's topic as well, I can tell you I've reviewed hundreds of PSAs, tenders, and I now have clients where, in terms of business, I do them a lot. I've got lots of war stories, I've got lots of experience. It is a very unique industry, as you all know. It's different, and some of the things I'll talk about today call out that difference, and these differences aren't particularly something that people you're dealing with, your clients and procurement teams, are actually familiar with and understand. So today's to give you some tips and some ideas and thinking around how you can do this commercially, not legally. I always like to say you win legal points by being commercial. You don't win much by being a lawyer. So yeah, 3 years, just under 4 years at Adecco, running a legal team there for Adecco Australia, New Zealand, and now with businesses across Australia. So in different industries, but I do focus predominantly on professional staffing. I don't do a lot of blue collar. So PSA. So there was a question: what are TOBs and PSAs? So TOBs, hopefully everyone's familiar. It's the terms of business within the industry, terms and conditions. PSAs, preferred supplier agreements. So effectively the tender scenario, but I use PSAs to mean any client contract which isn't your standard terms of business. So really today we'll probably focus more on the PSAs, because that's where the negotiations can. This is where I guess my tips are more valuable in that negotiation. But it's also good to keep in mind what I'm talking about in the context of your TOBs, because if you turn it around, the things you're trying to negotiate to get up on your PSAs, you're already starting there within your terms of business, if that makes sense. You kind of go this way to balance it up. Start from the best position. So what is a PSA? It's pretty simple. You get your request. There's a whole bunch of schedules that you need to fill in, or there's a tender request which will then fill in the schedules. You might get schedules within the tender itself that are filled in. You'll get a standard contract 90% of the time. Very rarely will you not get terms and conditions that are to apply. And then you'll have your response. Eventually you'll fill in your commercials, and there'll also be an exceptions table around the contract with the odd question: do you comply with it or not? An absolute question. So this is really it. It's a very simple pyramid of documents. It's a very complex process, obviously, the further you're going into tenders and the bigger the company. So let's talk about the standard contract approach that most people take. It's generally an off-the-shelf contract that the client is using. It's generally called a services agreement. You can have a product agreement, or you can have a services agreement. Generally, the services will make it terms and conditions which make sense for the service. Now, in the larger companies, it's probably come from an internal legal team. It's controlled by an internal legal team, or it may be it's been written by an external lawyer. It's probably got dust on it. I saw a clause probably 2 months ago that was a Y2K clause in a contract. 2019. You often see national privacy principles, which became Australian privacy principles in 2014, so 5 years ago. So we have contracts out there which are old, dusty. We pull them off the shelf and they won't really do a tender. The tender will tend to separate, because let's put the next point down here, but the tenders will be separated. There'll be the whole focus on the commercials and the pricing and the service and all the things they're asking you to deliver as part of your response. And then, by the way, here's the contract. That's how the tender works. Do you comply or not, as I said? There's often a reason for this, and that's generally because they don't want to touch the contract. So, well, that's the contract we have to put into the tender. So we're not going to touch that. That's the contract. What we're going to do is we're going to create all the things we want, and we're going to put them into our schedules. And so we're going to then have standard set of conditions, but we're going to have all these schedules that procurement teams get excited about and fill in. And there's a problem with that, because you've got terms and conditions which could be binding, which find themselves in schedules. And that means you've got inconsistent terms, or if you're not reviewing your tender as a whole, you may be signing up to things that go beyond what the contract says, or vice versa. So I see this all the time. So I never review a tender. My experience is never separate. Be aware that things do find their ways into the commercials and illegal. This is a big one. And I'm on the RCSA working group for procurement, and there's a procurement person who has no recruitment background who was on that working group, and he's been quite interesting having him in there. And perhaps, you know, his first comment was, well, I've worked in procurement a long time. I've never really come across people, labour, recruitment as a specialist category within an in-house procurement team. So they may be, it's not a big category. In an Australian company, recruitment and labour hire is not a big category. So you're not going to have someone sitting there who's dedicated to it, unless maybe you're a bank and maybe at an Asia Pac level. But it's unusual for someone who you're dealing with in a procurement team or on the other side to actually have the background in what you do. That's my experience. And this was borne out by these conversations I've had. So if you need to go in 5 minutes, you can get enough out of this probably, and you'll get a big chestnut out of what I'm going to talk about. Tony's heard this, I talk about this a lot. This is the crux of the issue. Your services, my words, but these are your services. This is what you do. A services agreement that you get from a client keeps me in business because 99% of them say what you are delivering under that contract is what the temporary contractor is doing day to day. Supply an engineer, your service is the engineer. This is the problem with these contracts. They are not clear about what your service is, and it gets skated over all the time. Your services are not what the temporary worker does for the client under the contract. Like I said, if you need to go, take that with you, because this is what I do. And it feeds into everything that I'm about to talk about. When I look at a contract, probably the top 5, probably the top 10, top 20, depending on the contract, but there are material things that you will want to be looking for in any contract that comes from a client. I'm conscious of that camera, so I'm not moving too fast. The definition of services, as I just said. Generally, it will say the services are as described in the schedule. You go to the schedule, which is to attach the contract, and the services will be listed as the roles you're going to be filling. You might not even talk about what they are. Where it gets a bit trickier, though, is you might have a contract that says the services are the services to be performed by the personnel. And the definition of personnel says that personnel is any of the recruitment agencies, employees, contractors, subcontractors, and so on. There is no distinction in the definition of personnel either between your temporary contingent workforce and your temp consultants who are actually delivering the service on your behalf or delivering it yourself. There's a key distinction that isn't made that needs to be made. Pricing, often rates are fixed. The contract will say it's a fixed price. You can't change it for 3 years. It's a lump sum because they're services contracts that have been delivered on deliverables. Makes sense if you're procuring IT consultants or facilities maintenance. There's a deliverable. There's physically a roped off area sometimes for maintenance, and that makes sense. If in your business, in the temporary space, it doesn't always make sense to just say fixed price. There are many variables within your price. Which brings me to my next point, considering changes in law which are going to impact your pricing. And procurement teams and agencies are guilty of this. You talk about revenue. You talk about the value of a contract. The value of the contract is $10 million. Yes, but you might be paying $9 million in salary. So you're just a washing machine of money. So your revenue is going straight out the door. And where those things change, it's a significant portion of your revenue. Where those things change, you want to be able to pass that through because you don't control that. Changes in policy, this is particularly in the mining space, I know many knows that, but there can be some clients who will change their policies like that because they have whole teams writing policies. They write policy after policy after policy. And some of those policies can have a big impact on your cost. So having the ability to revisit and have variations in contracts with changes in law, but also changes in policies is something to consider depending on who the client is with their policy. So really this is about pricing, is about maintaining flexibility around your pricing over the life of the contract. What reflects your business. Employee risk. So, where do I start with this one? There's a whole other conversation around contractor versus employee. And I know we have PAYG contractors, we have casuals, we have long-term casuals, we have ABNs, we have proprietary limiteds. They're all great tags that get used in this industry all the time. At the end of the day, they're an employee or they're a genuine independent contractor. That's it. I can tell you, they're pretty much always an employee, regardless of what you tell them. So getting that right is a huge thing. But if you are clear in your engagement model and what you are doing, putting out temporary casual employees or fixed term employees, the ability to pass through a notice period that may be applicable. Now, casual, lower risk, but if you've got maximum term contractors that you're putting out on a 6-month term or a 12-month term, national employment standards will apply and they'll apply a 1-week minimum notice period. Client will ring up and say, we don't want this, we don't need Martin anymore, the job's finished. Wedding's cancelled, I don't know. And everything to function. And all of a sudden, the client has the right to give you 24 hours notice, and that employee has the right to be paid 7 days of notice. And I don't often see contracts that would deal with that notice period. This is a conversation that we have with clients because often clients just issue with us. That's why we're using it. Well, no, it's not why you're using this. You're using this for flexibility. You're not using this to bankroll your payroll, basically offset all of your employment entitlements. So that's a really important one to be able to pass through entitlements if they apply. The backstop is even if you think you've got a casual workforce, we're all familiar with the Skeen case. There's a word pack, so this is a case which many people see as term casual versus permanent on its head. It hasn't actually, but it's created some pretty clear principles now based on previous cases, but there's a lot of nervousness in the market. So even if you think you've got casuals, it's always good to have terms that say, if we got it wrong, we have the ability to pass that through to you, client. Because what I often see, in my experience with clients, is they continue to roll terms over. They continue to roll contractors over because they like them. They're doing a good job. You like the margin, so you continue to agree. And you've got someone winning for 3 weeks, who's then been there for 3 months, who's then been there for 6 months, who's then been there for 12 months, and then they don't like them anymore. Got terms which give you no ability to protect yourself. You get a claim from the worker, but they're a casual. Then you have to have a whole conversation or argument about that. You might lose it, and then you're left holding the can. So I'm conscious I'm going very fast here. We'll do questions at the end, by the way. So, yeah. Liability, hold harmless. Don't see a lot of them anymore. A hold harmless, for those who aren't familiar, is an indemnity within a contract which says even if we are negligent, even if client is negligent, agency picks up the tab. That's a hold harmless. So not only are you responsible for your own acts as negligence, even if we hurt the person, not our problem, you're going to pay the bill. That's well beyond your insurance, by the way, which I'll get to. So these aren't as rife now, but depending on the industry, they do appear. They can be snuck into contracts for a profit which are off the shelf. Yeah, they're really a massive problem. They're a massive problem from a legal perspective. In my experience, they're a massive problem from a cultural and values perspective. If your client wants you to take responsibility for them hurting your people, you question that clause in the context of, so what you are saying is you're going to put our people into higher risk jobs. If the client says yes, which I had a client once say that to me, then you can make a fully informed decision about what they actually care about. And I know clients do this, by the way. To be honest, we know clients will maybe hire into high risk jobs. Not having an overall liability cap, it's just a commercial decision. You've got unlimited liability, even if it's breach of contract. You've got indemnity for breach of contract, which is not an insurable risk. And then you've got unlimited liability. So your insurance, asking you to name them on your policy, named versus noted, the words to look for. If you're named, they're asking you to be named on your insurance. That means they want to be primarily insured under your policy as you. So you may have an indemnity which says each party is responsible for its own negligence. By the way, we're allowed to claim on your insurance for our negligence. So you end up in the same situation. It's a hold harmless. They've said, oh, we're responsible for what we do, but we're going to claim on your policy, your premiums, your tail, your risk. Other clauses that breach your insurance, hold harmless will breach your insurance unless you go to your insurer, because your insurance is effectively only going to cover you for what you're otherwise liable for. That's what insurance does. It doesn't cover you for extra risk that you've taken on under a contract, unless you get the insurer's approval and you pay some premium for that. But we never ever accept those clauses without making sure when your insurer has signed off on waivers of subrogation. Such a lawyerly term, but the waiver of subrogation means that, so an insurer, so think about a car, you have a car accident, you're comprehensively insured and a car runs into you, and you're not at fault, insurance will pay you out, $5,000 damage, they'll get your car back on the road. What they'll then do is they want to know who's responsible, right? Get the name and number. They will then sue that person for $5,000 in your name under your insurance policy. That means subrogated and step into the shoes of. So if you have a clause that says a waiver of that, the client is asking your insurer to not recover from the client, even if the client was at fault. So that's another one of these tricky clauses. So it's technical, but it's something you'll see all the time. You never agree to these things without your insurer. And your insurer will say yes, probably. You know, they might charge you $1,000 for an extra premium, but if you don't ask them, your whole policy is void. Your whole public liability policy won't respond. You press no. That says, and your TAB should cover these things. So these are all things, as I said, that you want to see. You want to be starting from your position. You wouldn't want to be having hold harness in your own TABs. You wouldn't even want to have insurance requirements you have on your client, actually. The rates are clear. It's clear you're going to pass through any on costs if you have to. The definitions are clear. I put that arrow there, the red arrow, because employee risk sits in all of this, because it's going to be your, and I know I'm focused on contractors, this is the bigger risk area. It's going to be your contingent worker, which may cause property damage or personal injury, that's going to impact your insurance clauses. It's going to impact your liability clauses. Clearly, it's going to impact the cost of having them as an employee. Clearly, it's going to impact your pricing because that's what you're putting out there, and including your definitions. So, again, I can't talk about it today, but that engagement model is really crucial to your business if you're running a contract business. And we've already had a brief conversation over here about sometimes it's pretty hard and maybe it's not worth it, you know, in certain things, or award rates and all these things. It's a really tough game. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of agencies out there that are probably, you know, not really across this. I said it a lot. So, because it's high risk, get it right, and you should be much better off. So, you've got this wonderful tender, you've talked to your lawyer, you always come back with 38 pages of exceptions. You've just gone on. What do I do now? Well, you have a conversation. Well, this is what you set up. This is what you should be doing. Because clients don't like legal exceptions. I'm going to point 4. There's a question. Will you lose a bid because of your legal response? I've never lost a bid because of a legal response. I've been told we've lost it because of a legal response, and that's bullshit. So that is pricing. But if someone ever loses one because of the legal exceptions, it's because they've put in 30 pages and every clause. So you've got to be judicious about it. But yeah, your audience are non-lawyers, you're non-lawyers, your audience are non-lawyers, at procurement teams. If they're in a larger organisation, I focus on this, they probably don't even like their legal team. They don't want to talk to them because I'll get 38 pages back. When I started in-house, I worked at Blue Scope Steel, and I was about there for 4 years. It was great fun. And we had standard contracts, and I had no incentive to say yes, because it was Blue Scope Steel at the time when Blue Scope was going gangbusters. So I spent 4 years in an in-house team just saying, no. Then I went to Adecco, I went to Landmark, between AWB, then I went to Adecco, and I had no way, they had no incentive, I literally had a Blue Scope on the side, on the other side at one stage, no incentive to say yes. So you end up in a situation where you've got to find a way to get an incentive to say yes to someone who has no incentive to say yes. It's a real challenge as a service provider, I think that. If you're dealing with non-lawyers, they don't want to deal with their legals. You want to come across as easy to do business with. You want to be open-ended in your responses. Can we discuss? We'd love to clarify this. So you're putting it on the table, you're not cutting off the issue, but you're not saying, we don't like this, here's our preferred clause. Depending on what they want from you, there are ways and means of doing this, using the commercial language, short sentences. And this is all for you to kind of, and you'll see the presentation, this is all, if you get in this situation and you're dealing with lawyers, these are the tools and the roadmap for the lawyers. You know, this is how we need to respond to this tender. We get that you need to do your job and you need to read the whole contract. And lawyers, we're not like a taxi. You can't turn off the meter and get out of the cab. I had this conversation recently. Someone tried to get me down on my fee to 25% for the same job. And in the same email asked me when I could get it back to them. But I'm like, well, I can't. I can't do a 25% job on a contract because you'll sue me for negligence. So lawyers, unfortunately, are going to have to read a contract because they need to understand everything in it and they need to advise you. That doesn't mean you should be getting ridiculous exceptions back. We'll get more into what's important to you. If you can set the rules, don't just send them a contract so they can review that. You have to have some understanding of what's in your contract and what you want them to do. So I defend my profession in that respect. You know, you're going to get something back you're not happy with if you haven't actually set the rules. Overarching comments, I mentioned it, well, I haven't mentioned it, sorry. So I often put at the top of mind, you know, around services, we know that the contract doesn't define services properly. A lot of our exceptions relate to this one issue, depending on the response. You're calling out the main issue. We're going to go through a negotiation. The contract you've given us is probably going to change. The commercials are going to change throughout negotiation. Therefore, we reserve the right, soft language for that, to come back to the contract. It just captures you. Every risk you accept is virtually impossible to undo. And what I mean by that is, if you start, you're in a competitive tender, and I'll focus on this. You're in a competitive tender and you know your competitors are going in at 10% or flat 6% current fees, whatever it is, you know that, so you have to go in battle less. So you go in at your best price and you go in with no contract exceptions. Or you go in at your best price and you go in with contract exceptions. We don't accept unlimited liability, we don't accept this named insurance, we don't accept that. Then you get into a negotiation and or the client comes back to you and says, we love your bid, but no contract exceptions. You go, okay, no worries. So you priced at 6% and you just accepted every risk. You haven't priced that at all. You've made no connection. Because once you accept those clauses, no client in the right mind probably is going to turn around and say, oh yeah, happy to talk about it now. So it's a strong connection, a strong bit of a game, but you need to be really mindful of your price versus your risk. Because you're going to drop your price in a bid. When you're in a competitive bid, that's the first thing, they're going to come after your price. And if you start giving stuff away or giving it away, you're just accepting so much more risk for a lower price. So preempt that risk, less money outcome. Even if you, again, using open-ended language, but having the work done in the background, let you be prepared for that negotiation. Just be aware of that tension. So, what do I do? I've got this bid, it's a great opportunity, I've got a client contract, who do I talk to? So I know APSCO now, a few members of APSCO. APSCO have a number of us who they have a bid writer and insurance, so they have people that they can refer you to that know the industry. But these are the things I would be looking at, depending on the contract, and then they come to me, rather you want to be having a lawyer, probably, you know what it is. Insurance, good to know your broker, good to make sure your broker is using them to move with the industry. And you can have these conversations around liability, they've got a good relationship with your insurer as well. To actually run these things by them. If you give them plenty of time to do that before you put in your bid. You might find the insurer says, yeah, no worries, you can accept that, happy days, bang, you put that in, we're happy to accept this, our insurer is confirmed. That's a nice message because you probably have in-house legal teams from some of your competitors that say, oh, we can't accept that, global policies. Manpower, Adecco, it's global policies, we can't accept that. That'll be their first response. If you go and say, we can accept that. Good. Pricing, do you need a pricing expert? Hopefully you're a pricing expert, so something to think about. You know, if you're in an exclusive contract kind of arrangement, well, this is important bid writing, obviously. I'm trying to cover the field between a massive tender right down to a great opportunity with a local council or university or right down to sort of private client. So you want to get prepared. So we're now assuming when you're on the bid, you've got a phone call. Right, love your bid, love your offer. We want to get you in made through the first round. So okay, what do you do? Well, I've touched on this. Having done the work already to know your risk appetite, actually knowing what you're prepared to accept. And by risk appetite, it is, if you didn't accept any risk, you may as well just shut the doors. You can't run a business without risk. You lawyers have a tendency to be zero tolerant to risk, and I get that. But we all accept risk. I accept risk. I provide services before I send an invoice. It's ridiculous risk, but I do it. So there's a risk. We all accept risk. That's how we grow our businesses. But you need to know where your money is. You need to know what that risk is and what you're prepared to do. What do you do better than anyone else? Your insurer, you have a great relationship, you've had claims. You know your insurer will agree to these things. So you know your risk appetite means you can be a little bit more aggressive on those things. You know you've got a kick-ass system behind you for electronic timesheeting. Whatever it is, you know, okay, if a client, is saying that timesheets, whatever it is around timesheets is a high risk, you know, that's fine, we can accept it. Right down to, other risks, depending on the roles you fill. Once again, these roles aren't high risk because we know that, because we're going to work, so we're happy to accept that risk. Unless you know that within the context of your own business, then you're fine to be blind. So group your topics together for your preparation. The thing I first talked about, services are confused, the client doesn't understand it, so you're going to have a conversation with them at some point. So you need to go in there prepared to have that conversation in the context of other things you're prepared. It's going to be a pricing conversation. If you want us to put in temps and engineers who, are going to be designing bridges and fall over, if I'm going to put in people who have responsible alcohol service obligations and you want me to take responsibility for license breaches, I don't know if your clients, it's a context where your clients might accept that that's you. And it's squad that's sitting behind the bar and pouring those drinks. So what does it mean when the regulator comes in? Who's at fault? Consider the service offer. It's a nice thing for a lawyer to say, but I'll put it on there. Consider how you might be able to carve your offer depending on the contract. There's a way you can have different pricing options. You be prepared for that conversation. You wouldn't put that in your bid response unless you've been asked to put forward options. You just look like you're trying to take control of the bid or the negotiation. If you're prepared to have those conversations, it all comes into these things. There might be different ways you can do it. And your background, which I'm going to talk about, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. This is the holy grail of negotiation experts all around the world. Your background. The best alternative to negotiated agreement. The other way is it's your walk away. It's your leverage to say, I'm buying a car. I'm really interested in a car at $7 grand. I've got the same car over here for $6 grand. So my best alternative to your car is this car. So I'm walking in negotiation with you at 7,000. I know I have an alternative. That's my walk away. You won't go below 6.5. The car might have a few more thousand kilometres less. If you won't go below 6.5, I'm going to go back. So basically, I touched on this. Insurance can touch, insurance covers a lot of risks. It won't cover every risk. So insurance is not blanket. There's no insurance policy in this world which will cover everything in your business. Breach of contract is not covered because contract is something outside what we would normally accept in law. So often you'll have conversations around insurance. You've got $20 million worth of insurance, therefore your liability coverage should be $20 million. Insurance is a risk management tool that you put in to make sure you can deliver on the promises you've agreed to and to make sure you keep your doors open. They're the two reasons you have insurance. First one, to deliver on the promises you've agreed to. So just because you've got 20 million doesn't mean you want to put out $20 million worth of liability for something at 6% or a small contract. So save those big dollar exposures for the big dollar deals. Don't just think, I'm insured at $20 million. That's not what insurance is for. It's to pay you $5,000 cap. I've seen this quite successfully done. Takes time, but preparing. It's a basic concept that a lot of people probably don't do a lot of. Actually preparing how you're going to present, who's going to present, who's in the room, and knowing who is in the room. Who's going to be in the room on the other side? Is there going to be a lawyer in the room on the other side? You want to know that, trust me. Because often there'll be the silence and there'll be the sideways look to the lawyer. The lawyer will jump in and give you a legal answer and use you going, I'm not saying you have to turn up with a lawyer. Never turn up with a lawyer if the other side doesn't have one either. That's the just know who they are. What are you talking about? Hey, we've got through. What are your particular concerns? Get some more information out. Again, these are all, I know they're not, some of them probably sound, they're good luck, you're not the one negotiating. Well, I've been in these rooms and I've done big deals and I've seen these things over time and time again. I walked into negotiations unprepared and got smashed. So I've learned this lesson myself. So the walk-away position, the back one. Best alternative to negotiate agreement. Talked about that. So it's really, that's the definition of it. The best you can do if the other person is refusing to negotiate. You can't go any further. It's not necessarily ideal, by the way, your battler. It's not going to be because it's your best alternative. It's the best you can do without them. So each side has a BATNA. In a competitive bid, it's pretty clear what their BATNA is. It's the other parties who are bidding. That's why you're having a competitive bid. They're creating a BATNA. Determining all of your available alternatives. You know, what are they? Is it a different client down the road? Do I look at my staffing? Do I look at my pricing? Do I look at my tech? Whatever it is, how do I just go in like this? I'm not waiting for somebody to walk down. So we find other, you know, I'm not going to do a shotgun and every opportunity that comes through, I'm going to know what my clear alternative is. Always thinking about what the realistic opportunity or alternative is on the other side. You might be touch on that a bit more, but it's always good to think about what their alternative is. And who has the best alternative? You probably know the answer to this most times. In a competitive environment, it's going to be the client, but not always. And assessing the other alternative, and I've touched on this a little bit, it's being able to go into a conversation and a little bit passive aggressively understand that. I might go on the next slide before I jump. I'll get back to it actually. I'm going to talk about the everyone else is signing it. I'll talk about that because that's what you hear all the time. But everyone else signed the contract. So negotiation, just 101. It's a process between buyer and supplier that seeks to improve value for money outcomes through discussion. Generally, it's value for money outcomes on the other side. I know that. That's what negotiation is. It's there to come in the middle, and hopefully it's a win-win. So, actually thinking again from preparation, showing understanding of the other, you know, in this case, the buyer or you know, showing understanding what they're after and their concerns and how you can mitigate that. So that's really drilling down into what you offer. That's not just price. I hope you're doing this when I'm talking about it. You're successful, so you must be doing it. What will you mitigate? What are their real concerns? You know, I've seen examples where the incumbent's just walked out on a contract because it's just terrible and they've been left in the lurch. And I've seen the name of the agency, someone else go in, how good's this? Happy days, done no preparation, they've just walked out of the contract. So now I hear that the first party is now looking at it again. It's just bizarre. But this is all about really, no one's really thought about, well, what's the issue? It's word cover like that. No one's really, you know, what's the issue within this client and what's the issue they're trying to solve? And clearly the client must be frustrated, so what are we trying to do? I just drop our price. I don't know why I put that up there. It's a bit flaky, isn't it? So here we go. Everyone else is signing it. What makes you different? How being, in my view, is being better prepared. Being better prepared to negotiate, being better prepared about what your business does, being better prepared to walk away. Or, at the right time, say that you're going to walk away. We hear that all the time. Everyone else has signed it. Do you comply? Do you not comply? Well, they give you do you not comply, so that means, well, maybe not everyone else is signing it. And who cares if everyone else is signing it? Because we're going to go into negotiation, and we're going to be a little bit passive aggressive about this, and we're going to point out to you in a passive aggressive manner that maybe the fact that everyone else is signing it isn't good for you, client. Really, they're signing up to those insurance provisions. Do you know that there is no insurance in the market that will cover that risk? I've seen this happen because I do this. Get them thinking about, well, maybe a piece of paper isn't worth much just because everyone else is signing it. If you're asking, because the lawyer over here has prepared a contract, remember, there's often a discord between who's negotiating the contract in front of you, who wrote it. What do you mean our contract says that? It's ridiculous. So you get people thinking, and this is an effective thing. Well, you know, being informed yourself about contracts. You can frame your competitors as maybe not being a great risk. And I've talked about these trade-offs. Well, so this is slightly different. So identifying, this is a really good negotiation tactic, which I talk about for fewer people, but negotiating trade-offs. We've got a kick-ass system. They're asking for it. They're asking whatever it is. They're asking for 100% uptime on your timesheets, and you know your system does that. Others might go and say, well, we can't agree to 100%. You're happy to do it, so You're going to say you can't do 100%, but you have to trade that off at some point in time. So know what they are and be ready to trade them off, because they're really simple little wins. They're not that important to you, but you don't tell them they're not important to you. That's really understanding what you value greatly. Be aware of the lose-win negotiation trap. I call this, is the juice worth the squeeze? Sales, and I've worked in a few sales businesses, not just recruitment. Sales is a tough game. Not being prepared is a common occurrence. Going in and losing a negotiation because you say yes to it, because you're not confident in what you're trying to say no to, means you lose-win. You always lose and your clients always win. Getting TOBs, clients come back, clients through them changes, and you go, I want this job. Yeah, okay. You do that 50 times, your consultants are doing that. That's a lose-win. There's a lose-win, there's a win-win, and there's a win-lose. And clearly the win-lose is where you are. Win-win's right. Lose-win is the salesperson's curse. Particularly in recruitment, because you're all too nice. Maybe you've got time, I don't know. But, because you want to be nice. Hospitality, I've worked in hospitality as a Sodexo and the legal team there. So, started hospitality and it was in the world. On-site mining, hospitality culture within that business, even in hard maintenance, hard facilities maintenance, running remote mining camps in WA, the culture of hospitality, that customers always right. We're negotiating a $400 million contract here, just saying yes, yes, yes to everything. Sure, say yes, but understand why. It can be a real trap. So you see this a lot. Let go, and you'll have people on the other side telling you they're an expert in your business, of course, but let go of being an expert, because you might not actually know the client, you might not know their business, you might not know all their pain points, but you're not an expert in their customer always. So don't always jump into solution mode. Lawyers, men, white middle-aged men, I'm pointing myself, I'm all these things. I am solutions focused. I always jump in. My wife gets so frustrated. Right? But I do these things, so I jump straight to solution mode. It's really hard for me to be an active listener. This is what I'm trying to teach myself a lesson. I always come too quick to come to solutions, and I haven't actually heard what the client needs. A lot of people do this. We know that. So if you can train yourself, or have the right people in the room who are good at this, then you're well able. So I've got someone over there who's just being an absolute pain. Really tough. You want the work, you're doing your best. What do you do? Like I said, listen, I call it the balloon exercise. And in life, you have someone very wise said this to me. You only have so much emotional capacity every day. You have 100% emotional capacity. Look at it as a balloon. And if you're going to use that emotional capacity on certain things that aren't important or you can't control, you're shrinking your balloon. You get to the end of your day, you get to the end of negotiation, you've got no more emotional capacity left because you've used it all, you're worn out and stressed. So to me, in the context of going to work and worrying about things, or trying to control things, or the person that cuts me off doesn't let me do those things, I use my energy on those things, and my balloon is being let out and I haven't got any capacity left for what's important. Turn that around, if someone's just going hard on their end, just sit back and let them run down their balloon. They're going to stop talking eventually. Don't jump into the solution, don't jump into the sorry, don't jump in with we'll do that, just let them talk. You can't control them. And they're not irrational, by the way. Very rarely is someone negotiating with irrational. They're always rational, but they live in a different world. They live in their rational world. You won't hear yours. Just let them talk. If you ever deal with unions, has anyone dealt with unions in here? Tough unions. Shit, man, first time seeing you. Standing up, yelling at my colleague HR, yelling, F this. You just sat there. And eventually, after 5 minutes of just pure vitriol, you sat down because you had nowhere to go because you just let him talk. I was scared. But, it's that whole, they'll show up eventually. So just let them get what they get out because it's important. If you're at an impasse, this whole trade-off thing, you're at an impasse, this is a really, really smart and really good basic thing to do. Say, okay, we're going to park that issue around insurance. So what's important? The client's really digging in this. Park it. How about we just park that issue for now, and let's move on to something else. And pick up something that's an easy win. Run together 3 or 4 or 5 easy wins because you're prepared. You build momentum, you build rapport because you're getting some wins. You're getting some win-wins here, and then come back to it. just don't stop negotiation there or dig in or have the lawyers jump in and start talking about indemnities and words and you just sit there glazing over and you lose control of negotiation. Take control, be assertive. I'm not going to get any further, by the way. Don't make concessions, as I said. Don't jump in and make concessions just to win them over. Be assertive. Remember why you're there. Act in your own interests. And if you need to take a break, take a break. Sharing the load, that just means making sure you're not in a room by yourself or having people you can talk to. If you don't want to agree to something, don't agree to it. Many people walk out of a room and they're having a fight with their partner or their child, their kid or something. Kids are the worst. It's impossible. But they're completely irrational. But you know, just sharing that load and having the ability to grow. It's your negotiation. You really want the business, but if you show confidence and assertiveness, you might actually impress the person over the side. That all making sense? Tell me how to say it. So, there's an elephant. It was in the room, and now it's leaving the room. Because I think a lot of you want to know, well, that's great. That's awesome. This sounds fantastic. But you know what? I've got no power in here. I've got no BATNA. I'm the worst BATNA ever. My BATNA is to cry. So if you have a weak BATNA, well, why don't we do a few things about that? We strengthen it. We strengthen it. But this is the one. You weaken their BATNA. You start looking at who your competitors are, and you start coming up with ways to maybe think, well, maybe that's not a great alternative in their mind. Maybe these guys have come up with a great pricing option. Maybe these guys are just throwing share plans on the table where my employees are going to get shares in their guy. You know, you're going to come up with something, but get creative. Think about what's unique to your business and what you do really well and what you're proud of and what you value. Always keep what they're thinking in mind. So a little bit of work here around the background. Timing is everything. I did touch on this before. Don't run in and go, you know, screw you. We don't need you. You're not going to do that, but people do. Once you do that, and I'm betting negotiations will come back. Once you do that, you've lost the other side anyway. So think about when you're going to, you know, come up with your battle that might weaken their battle, your comments that will weaken their battle. But don't think you can't. Don't think there aren't ways to weaken their better offer. Knowledge is a competitive advantage. That's coming back to my point, knowing your contract, knowing your risk, knowing what a contract can and can't have in it. Insurance policy can cover what the definition of services is and what that means and why your pricing is set here because you're not an engineer. Just having a knowledge, being prepared is a real competitive advantage. I'm going right on time here, Tony. So full circle, everything we've touched on. Knowing your business, knowing your risk appetite, know your team, who's going to go into a negotiation with you. So who are you going to use? You might use a great lawyer, you might not want me in the room, but know who your team is. But also what I mean by that is know who's going to be in the room. Are you good at this negotiation stuff just because you're the head of the business or the senior person? Are you really the right person for it? Maybe someone else is better doing the negotiation. I did negotiation. It's one of my favourite stories. I had a negotiation when I was a CSO and big multinational. And we're doing a really good job. And we're about to submit the bid, and we got a French parent. They got on the phone. They said, "No, we want a global lawyer. Italian guy speaks 7 languages. Angelo to be involved." So Angelo gets on the phone. "No, I do not know what you are agreeing to." Angelo flies out to Perth. Angelo arrives in Perth. Perth, we're in Balcatta, which is out. I don't know if you know Perth. But Balcatta is basically desert once you get out of the city. Pants rolled up, no socks. He's telling me, but it's shit down here. He rocks up to this mining business. And he says to me, "I'm not going to tell anyone what we are going to do in a meeting with them. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. I am going to be a prick. You are going to be you. You are nice. I am going to be that prick." Walked in there. My team, he just, it was extraordinary. But he said he knew who he was. He knew his role. He'd come out, and he was going to be the man that was going to say no to this massive multinational. And they sat there, boys, $700 an hour boys on our side. They'd never, ever been in a negotiation where the supplier's lawyer, as I tell you with his accent, was Just doing everything. I said, we walked out of the meeting, and Angelo went off to have his e-cigarette. My team, the senior managers, all went, what's that? He's destroyed this bid. He didn't destroy the bid. They came back and said yes to 80%. But he knew his role, so there's no way I could have done that. Because I am a nice one. But, you know, it was fascinating. It taught me a lot. Couldn't wait to see the back of him. But, yeah, it was just good. Everyone has their strengths. Knowing your partner, knowing you've done work, knowing that I've done everything I can here. We're really good at what we do. You're not an ideal client. Do you have ideal clients? Does anyone here have a criteria of ideal client? Do you ever run that in your own, maybe in your head or maybe on paper? We do. I have ideal clients. We don't know. Yeah, it's great. So we've got 8 or 10 on our ideal client list. You don't have to hit them all, but there's certain things on our ideal client criteria, values, paying your bills. There's 7 things that we want to see most of when we get a feel for a client. We just say no to business. We offer you. The person that wanted a 25% fee, in the same email, screw me down and want to be a date on delivery. I'm really sorry, but there's no way that I can value my work and feel like I'm doing a good job for you. There's no way you will get value for that. I know clients are really good. It's a competitive market, I get it, but having some kind of idea and consistency is a good thing. I haven't said this so many times. I've seen so many contracts which are won, they're the best thing ever. They're the worst thing ever. They're the worst. Just whatever it takes. We don't care about the juice. We're going to squeeze this. We're going to get lemonade, and you end up with the worst lemon juice. You just squeeze. Juice is worth the squeeze. You end up with a bad contract. But you don't know you end up with a bad contract unless you know what a bad contract is. So that's it for me. So now I want to talk to you about something else, because I'm running a webinar in a few weeks where I'm talking about margin killers. Very similar to what I talked about today. This is what I call them. The margin killers that are hiding in the business that you don't know about. They're working there under the perm desk, under the temp desk, doing your TOBs now. So, end of October, I think. These are my 8 things. I want to just touch on them because I think they're valuable. If you don't come on the webinar, I'd love you to. And if you don't, the TOB lottery, this is the old, everyone's using their own version of terms of business in your business off their desktop, and they're making changes to your terms of business. You've got no idea what's going on. Clients agreeing to this, you've got consultants agreeing to this. It's a juice versus squeeze, saying yes to everything. The client comes back because you're not confident about negotiating terms in your business because you don't know what they are. Because you ain't borrowed them from your last job, and you cut and paste, you've got a TOB lottery going on. You all do it? I know. You know what's in them. What's okay? Recruiter, a client, candidate walk into a bar. The bartender says, is this a joke or something? This is me saying, I don't want you to be the punchline. Don't be the punchline when it comes to introducing your candidates to clients without signed terms of business or without some other mechanism, because I know it's really hard to get signed terms of business, without actually thinking about what am I doing? You're about to get all your IP. There's a case in WA recently, WA Unpersonal Concepts law firm. End up in court, of course, law firm. Got a great candidate for you. Guys, partners on his holidays. I hate recruiters. How did you get my number? Oh, sorry, I've got a great candidate for you. Fine. We don't use recruiters. I want to send it through. Fine. Sends the candidate, puts the terms of business on the email, not anonymous, sends the CV to the lawyer. They recruit him, they send him a bill for the fee for 23 grand. It's a lawyer, it's a good fee. I'm paying that. Contract ends up in court. Court says, what contract? You didn't say anything, you didn't make anything aware of the terms of business, of the term of the fee. You didn't even make it clear. The law firm is very clever. They were under the impression that the candidate was paying you a fee for the introduction. Now, we all know that doesn't happen. But if I'm a judge sitting on a bench, it's a pretty compelling argument. It's what do I know about recruitment? I don't know anything about business, let alone recruitment. So they lost because they didn't do any groundwork. This is our fee. So how you present your candidates is really important. because you end up the punchline and 23 grand fee, cost the legals to chase it. It's a lot of money.
Well, worse than that, they didn't broker the interview. They facilitated negotiations over no basis.
No, there's lots of things, and they should have been flooded a candidate they haven't been identified.
No offer, no acceptance.
Yeah, no offer, no acceptance. Law firm was not aware, client was not aware of the terms of the, so there was no consideration. They did a lot of things wrong, but this is the basic punchline.
The only thing they'd be right to pick up the phone. So,
Yeah, and cop them. Yes, yeah. My PA two goes down. I'm getting introductions right. What's your services? Who are your personnel? Who are your temporary workers? What's an introduction? What is an introduction? When does your fee get triggered? What's an engagement? I see terms of business all the time that say permanent fee is due on employment. It's 2019. Employment is just one little tiny, well, it's not, it's still a component, a major component, but it's not the only way people get engaged anymore. Gig economy, the end sorts. So if you just say you don't get a fee on employment, you might have an argument on your hands about, well, we didn't employ them, put them through their own business, whatever it is. The definition is very important, so you're very clear. Temporary services, permanent vigilance, it's a really tough game. I've talked about this. You can't set and forget. You can't set and forget safety. You can't set and forget employee casuals. Lots of things you can't set and forget. If you're going to go down through privacy, you have to know what you're doing. There is so much more increased scrutiny now. We know it. Labour hire licensing, you guys have had it up here. We've got it in Victoria. It's just causing all sorts of grief. But it's lifting the bar. I've got no issue with it. I think the increased regulations, it's a good thing for the industry because if you know what you're doing, rising tide lifts all boats. But there is so much more focus on this. This is a very similar thing. Keeping not getting that right and not passing through costs in your TOBs and notice periods and entitlements, or having this to backstop redundancy payments. If this person's rolled over and they're entitled to a redundancy, then we're going to pass that through. There's no reason your terms can't say that. Because the client wants you to keep rolling them over, why do you have to keep accepting the risk? It's more and more. Your consultant comes on board and you don't train them in the TOBs. Essentially here, but some of this stuff, you are giving the keys to your business. Who knows what the consultant's doing? They don't know what they're doing with your terms of business. They don't understand that because you haven't told them. You do all this other onboarding about your wonderful policies. Why are you doing TOBs? I don't know. Money, don't think they're important. We don't take cash, debt recovery. What are you doing for your processes point of view? Are you a good client? They'll pay. Are you asking your consultants to recover debts? Are your consultants not very good at that? Not everyone can get on the phone and have a difficult conversation about an unpaid bill and they might push your payment. Make sure you know who the people you're asking to recover debts on your behalf. Not everyone is good at this. Not everyone's good at everything. If they're good at sales doesn't mean they're good at having a difficult conversation to chase debts. Might be doing yourself a disservice. Having a process, having scripts. I've got a document, happy to share with you from this last time. I think 2 people took me up on it. I've got a document, Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales, which gives you all the scripts. At 7-day mark, this is the conversation we have. At 14-day mark, this is the email we sent. At 30-day mark, this is the letter of demand we sent. I'm happy to provide all the details on what, if it goes pear-shaped and you want to sue, that's your options. Happy to share it. Really good to have. We're done. Oh, sorry, no, we're not. So I'm going to have some tips on the things I've just talked about. I'll give those. I've got my tricks of the trade, which are things I like on the journey that maybe other lawyers haven't worked because they haven't been in the industry. Have on my back there, but that's my kind of shit. And we're done. I'm a fast speaker, sorry, and I'm work conscious here. I've got places to be, so I have gone through stuff.